the unspoken price tag when his joy becomes her concern. It started with a watch, not just any watch, but a gleaming, expensive timepiece he had saved for. His eyes shone when he showed it to her. Hers, however, narrowed just a fraction. A flicker of something unreadable passed across her face. Was it disapproval, concern, or perhaps something else entirely, something more complex? This small moment, this subtle shift in expression speaks volumes. It hints at an undercurrent in many relationships. It poses a question about men, women, and the things men choose to buy. Why might a woman feel uneasy when a man indulges in something nice for himself? This isn't about malice. It is often about unspoken rules. Consider a recent survey. It suggested many women perceive men's luxury purchases differently than their own. A woman's expensive handbag might be seen as an investment in her image, or perhaps a well-deserved treat. A man's similar indulgence, however, can sometimes trigger different labels. Is he being irresponsible? Is he trying too hard to show off his status? Or is he simply compensating for something else he feels he lacks? These are not comfortable questions, yet they linger in the air, often unsaid but deeply felt. The perception of value and appropriateness seems to shift subtly based on gender. This shift deserves a closer look. This phenomenon is not universal, of course. Many partners celebrate each other's joys and successes, material or otherwise. Yet the anecdote of the watch, and the survey's implications, point to a pattern. A pattern woven from threads of history, societal expectation, and deeply ingrained gender roles. It suggests that men's desires for nice things are sometimes viewed through a different, more critical lens. This lens can distort the man's intentions. It can also place an unexpected burden on his choices. We must explore why this lens exists, and what it truly reveals about our shared cultural narratives. The issue is not simply about money. It is about what possessions signify. For men, are nice things purely for personal pleasure? Or are they statements loaded with societal meanings that women are conditioned to scrutinize? Perhaps the concern stems from a place of shared resources, or maybe it touches upon deeper anxieties about stability and partnership. Understanding this dynamic means looking beyond the surface. It means untangling the complex web of expectations that surround men, women, and the material world they navigate together. We need to ask what messages we send and receive about worth. Echoes of yesterday: how history shaped our pockets and perceptions. Our views on possessions are not formed in a vacuum. They are inherited. They are shaped by centuries of tradition and societal structure. Historically, men were cast as providers. Their primary role was to earn, to build, to secure the family's financial well-being. Possessions in this context often served a practical purpose. They were tools for their trade. They were symbols of their ability to provide. Or they were investments meant to grow the family's wealth. A man's worth was often visibly tied to his material success, but this success was for the collective, for the family unit he was expected to support. Women, on the other hand, historically had different roles. Their domain was often the home. Their possessions were frequently linked to domesticity or personal adornment. These items were often provided by men, fathers or husbands. This created a different relationship with material goods. For women, nice things might have been gifts, symbols of affection or status bestowed upon them. They were not typically the primary earners who decided on large, independent purchases. This historical imbalance in economic power and roles has left a lasting imprint. It subtly influences how we view men's spending today, even in more egalitarian times. Think about the heirlooms passed down. Men often inherited land, businesses, or tools of a trade. These were items of utility and capital. Women might inherit jewelry, fine china, or linens. These were items of beauty, domestic value, or sentiment. This division reflects the differing spheres of influence. It also reinforces the idea that men's acquisitions should be substantial and purposeful. They should contribute to a larger legacy. Frivolous or purely aesthetic purchases by men might have seemed out of sync with this established provider role. This mindset, though outdated, still whispers in our modern consciousness. These historical scripts are powerful. They continue to play out in subtle ways. We might consciously believe in equality, we might reject old-fashioned gender roles, yet the echoes of these past expectations can still shape our gut reactions. They influence our perceptions of what is appropriate spending for a man versus a woman. When a man buys something purely for his own enjoyment, it can sometimes feel like a deviation from that historical role. A role that prioritized collective provision over individual indulgence. This history is the bedrock upon which current stereotypes are often built. The practical man myth stereotypes that box men in. Society has long held a specific image of the ideal man. He is strong, he is stoic, he is, above all, practical. This practical man stereotype dictates many things. It dictates how he should behave, what he should value, and yes, what he should own. According to this myth, men are not supposed to be overly interested in aesthetics or luxury for its own sake. Their purchases should be functional. They should be sensible. A powerful drill, a sturdy truck, a reliable computer, these are acceptable. These things fit the image of a man who builds, fixes, and provides. Anything perceived as frivolous can challenge this masculine ideal. A man who shows too much interest in fashion, art, or decor might be viewed with suspicion. Is he less masculine? Is he vain? Is he perhaps not serious enough about his responsibilities? These are the silent judgments that bubble beneath the surface. Luxury items, especially those that don't have a clear practical application, can fall into this category. Think of expensive grooming products, designer clothing not meant for work, or purely decorative objects. These can clash with the rugged, no-nonsense image of the practical man. This stereotype creates a double standard. Women are often encouraged, even expected, to take an interest in beauty and aesthetics. Their spending on such items, while sometimes criticized for other reasons, is generally seen as more aligned with traditional femininity. For men, however, the same interest can lead to questioning of their very identity. This pressure to conform can be immense. It limits men's ability to express themselves fully. It tells them that certain joys, certain forms of self-expression through material things, are not for them. This is a narrow and restrictive view of masculinity. The practical man myth doesn't just affect how others see men, it affects how men see themselves. Many men internalize these expectations. They might feel guilty or ashamed for desiring something beautiful but unnecessary. They might hide their purchases or downplay their interest in certain things. This creates a disconnect between their authentic desires and the persona they feel compelled to project. The stereotype suggests that a real man finds satisfaction in utility, not in beauty or personal indulgence. This is a disservice to the rich and varied inner lives of men. Modern manifestations. Seeing the stereotypes in action. These established stereotypes are not just relics of the past, they are alive and well. We see them reflected in our daily lives, often in subtle yet powerful ways. Think about conversations among friends. A woman might excitedly share news of a new pair of expensive shoes. She might receive admiration, or perhaps a playful tease about her shopping habits. Now imagine a man sharing his excitement about a similarly priced designer scarf or a decorative art piece for his apartment. The reactions might be different. There might be raised eyebrows. There might be jokes that hint at his masculinity or his financial sense. Media portrayals also play a significant role in reinforcing these norms. In movies and television shows, men who are overly concerned with their appearance or possessions are often caricatured. They might be depicted as vain, narcissistic, or out of touch. The manly hero, by contrast, is usually shown to be indifferent to such things. He wears practical clothes, he drives a functional vehicle. His home is unadorned or perhaps ruggedly styled. These portrayals constantly send messages about what is considered acceptable and aspirational for men. They create a cultural script that many feel pressured to follow. Marketing further cements these distinctions. Products are often gendered in their design and advertising. Men's luxury items are frequently marketed with an emphasis on performance, technology, or status linked to power. Think of watches that highlight their engineering, or cars that emphasize their speed and dominance. The message is often, this item is an extension of your capability or your success. Luxury for women, however, can be marketed more around beauty, self-care, and indulgence. This difference in approach subtly reinforces the idea that men's desires for nice things need a practical or status-driven justification, while women's do not always require the same. Even in personal relationships, these stereotypes can create tension. A partner might question a man's significant expenditure on a hobby or a collectible item. The concern might be framed around family finances, but underlying it, there can also be the unspoken assumption that such spending is less legitimate for him, that his money or shared money should be prioritized for sensible things, the mortgage, the children's education, the family car. His personal desires for things that simply bring him joy can be relegated to a lower priority, subtly reinforcing the old provider script. Section 5. The hidden cost: masculinity, materialism, and mental well-being. The pressure to conform to these narrow definitions of masculinity has consequences. It takes a toll on men's mental health and their sense of self-worth. When a man's genuine interests or desires are met with judgment or misunderstanding, it can be deeply invalidating. Imagine wanting to express a part of your personality through your possessions, only to feel that you must hide it, or to feel that your choices make you somehow less of a man in the eyes of others, or even in your own eyes. This creates an internal conflict that can be quite damaging over time. This constant self-monitoring can lead to feelings of anxiety and stress. Men might find themselves constantly evaluating their choices. Will this purchase be seen as acceptable? Will it fit the expected masculine image? This is an exhausting way to live. It prevents them from freely exploring their tastes and preferences. The joy that should come from acquiring something beautiful or meaningful can be overshadowed by worry about external perception. This can lead some men to suppress their desires altogether. They might opt for a blander, more acceptable existence, which can diminish their overall life satisfaction. Furthermore, if a man does indulge in something nice for himself and faces criticism, it can erode his self-esteem. He might internalize the idea that his desires are frivolous or wrong. This can be particularly acute in relationships if a partner consistently questions his spending on personal items. It can make him feel like his contributions are only valued if they are purely practical or sacrificial. This dynamic can foster resentment. It can also lead to secretive behaviors like hiding purchases, which further strains trust and communication within the relationship. This is not a healthy foundation for partnership. The inability to express oneself authentically, including through material choices, can contribute to a broader sense of dissatisfaction. It can even link to more serious mental health issues. When society tells men that their emotional lives should be restricted, and that their interests should fit into a narrow box, it denies their full humanity. Valuing nice things isn't inherently shallow. For many, it's about appreciating craftsmanship, beauty, or self-expression. Denying men this outlet or shaming them for it is another way of limiting their emotional and personal landscape, with real costs to their well-being. Section 6. Beyond the backlash, seeking equality, not justification. It is important to address potential counter-arguments here. Some might say this discussion is unfair to women. They might argue that women also face intense scrutiny for their spending habits. This is undoubtedly true. Women are often judged for spending too much or for spending on the wrong things. They face pressures related to appearance and consumerism that are unique to them. The point here is not to diminish those experiences, it is to highlight a specific gendered dynamic that affects men, a dynamic that often goes unacknowledged because it clashes with traditional notions of male privilege. Another common argument is that concerns about a man's spending are often rooted in practical financial considerations, especially within a family or partnership. Shared resources mean shared decisions. This is a valid and crucial point. Financial responsibility is essential for any healthy relationship. Open communication about budgets and spending priorities is key. However, the issue arises when these financial discussions are disproportionately critical of a man's personal spending simply because it is for his enjoyment, or when his desires are automatically deemed less legitimate than other types of expenditure, reflecting those older, ingrained stereotypes. True gender equality means that both partners should feel free to pursue personal fulfillment. This includes the enjoyment of nice things if they so choose and can responsibly afford them. It's not about one gender having more rights than the other. It is about dismantling the specific, often unspoken biases that restrict men. Mutual empowerment in a relationship means supporting each other's individual happiness. It means understanding that personal joy, even if derived from a material object, contributes to overall well-being. This in turn can strengthen the partnership. The goal is not to justify reckless spending by anyone, male or female. It is to advocate for a more nuanced understanding, an understanding that recognizes men too can have aesthetic desires, that they too can find joy in beauty and craftsmanship without it diminishing their masculinity or their sense of responsibility. It's about moving beyond the stereotype of the purely practical man. We need to allow space for men to be multifaceted human beings. This shift benefits everyone. It allows for more authentic individuals and more balanced relationships. Section 7. Redefining Worth. Towards a new understanding of men's desires. The narrative around men and their possessions is slowly beginning to shift. We are seeing a gradual redefinition of what it means to be a man in the modern world. This includes a growing acceptance of men expressing a wider range of interests and emotions. Younger generations in particular seem less constrained by the rigid gender roles of the past. They are often more comfortable exploring diverse forms of self-expression. This includes a greater appreciation for aesthetics, design, and personal style, extending to the things they choose to own and enjoy. The rise of the men's self-care movement is one indicator of this change. Men are increasingly investing in grooming products, skincare, and wellness practices. These were once considered predominantly female concerns. Now they are becoming more mainstream for men. This signals a broader shift. It suggests a growing understanding that taking care of oneself and appreciating things that enhance one's well-being and personal presentation is not unmanly. It is simply human. This opens the door for men to embrace nice things without the same level of societal baggage. We are also seeing more diverse portrayals of masculinity in media and popular culture. While old stereotypes persist, there are also more nuanced representations. Characters who are strong, yet sensitive. Men who are successful yet also appreciate art, fashion, or a beautifully crafted object. These new role models help to normalize a broader range of masculine identities. They show that a man can be interested in traditionally masculine pursuits while also enjoying things that might once have been labeled feminine or frivolous. This helps to break down the old, restrictive boxes. Ultimately, redefining worth means moving beyond simplistic gendered expectations. It means valuing individual happiness and self-expression for everyone. A man's desire for a beautiful watch, a piece of art, or a stylish jacket should not be seen as a deviation from his masculinity. It should be seen as a reflection of his personal taste. It is a part of who he is. As society becomes more accepting of diverse masculinities, the idea that women somehow don't want men to have nice things will hopefully fade. It will be replaced by a culture of mutual respect for individual choices and joys. Section 8. Mirrors and marketplaces, media's role in shaping wants. The media acts as a powerful mirror, reflecting societal norms, but it also actively shapes them. When it comes to men and their possessions, media messages have historically reinforced traditional stereotypes. Advertisements for men's products often emphasized ruggedness, utility, or status tied to professional success. Luxury for men was framed as a reward for achievement, or a tool for further advancement. This created a narrow definition of what was acceptable for men to desire. It linked their material wants directly to their role as providers or achievers in the public sphere. Consumer culture, fueled by media and advertising, places immense pressure on both genders. However, this pressure manifests differently. For men, there can be a subtle discouragement from overt consumerism unless it fits specific masculine scripts. A man passionate about collecting rare books might be seen as intellectual. A man passionate about collecting designer shoes might face different perceptions. The media often dictates which male interests are cool or respectable and which are suspect. This limits the range of desires that men feel comfortable expressing or pursuing openly. However, the media landscape is changing. The rise of social media has provided new platforms for expression. Men can now curate and share their interests more directly, bypassing traditional media gatekeepers. We see male influencers who are passionate about fashion, interior design, gourmet cooking, or art. They showcase lifestyles that defy old stereotypes. This helps to normalize a broader spectrum of male interests and desires. It shows other men that it is okay to appreciate beauty, craftsmanship, and personal style. It creates new communities around shared passions. Yet, consumerism itself remains a complex force. While new media can challenge old stereotypes, it can also create new pressures. The pressure to project a certain image online, to own the right things, can be intense for everyone. For men, this might mean navigating a new set of expectations around taste and lifestyle. The challenge is to foster a media environment that encourages authentic self-expression, one that allows men to define their own relationship with material things, free from both old prejudices and new consumerist pressures. This requires critical media literacy from all of us. Section 9. A wider lens, valuing individuals beyond gendered expectations. The question of why women might seem to not want men to have nice things is not a simple one. It is not about inherent female disapproval. It is about complex societal dynamics. It is about historical legacies and ingrained stereotypes that shape our perceptions, often unconsciously. These perceptions can lead to misunderstandings and unspoken tensions in relationships. They can limit men's freedom to express their full selves. They can create a subtle sense of judgment around their personal choices and desires, which is rarely helpful. To move forward, we need to adopt a wider lens. We must look beyond rigid gender roles. We need to challenge the outdated notion of the practical man who is supposedly indifferent to beauty or personal indulgence. Men, like women, are diverse individuals with a wide range of tastes, preferences, and desires. Appreciating a finely crafted object, taking pleasure in aesthetics, or wanting something simply because it brings joy is a human trait. It is not, and should not be, a gendered one. This understanding is vital for healthier individuals. Changing these deep-seated perceptions requires conscious effort. It requires open communication in relationships. Partners need to talk about their values, their financial priorities, and their individual desires without judgment. It requires media to portray more diverse and authentic masculinities. It requires us all to question our own biases. When we see a man enjoying something nice, we should pause before making assumptions. We should consider that his joy is as valid and important as anyone else's. This is a step towards genuine respect. Ultimately, valuing individuality means creating space for everyone to be themselves. It means fostering a culture where men feel just as free as women to explore their interests and express their personalities, including through their possessions, if they so choose. This is not about encouraging materialism. It is about encouraging authenticity and mutual respect. When we move beyond restrictive stereotypes, we create a world where both men and women can pursue happiness and fulfillment on their own terms. That is a world where everyone benefits from a richer, more understanding human experience.